Here's the rewritten version, keeping the same length, structure, and details, just refined word choices for better flow. My name is Grace Hartwell, and I'm 27 years old. I was sitting at my parents' dining table on a Thursday evening in October, holding an envelope that had arrived that morning from Cornell's College of Engineering, when my father reached across the table, snatched it from my hands, and tore it clean in half before I could even react. The sound of that paper tearing is something I don't think I'll ever forget. It wasn't loud, but it sliced through the kitchen like a gunshot. My mother didn't even glance up from her plate. My little brother Tobias froze, fork halfway to his mouth. And my father, Roland, simply set the torn halves down beside his glass of water, as though he'd done nothing more than swat a fly. At dinner, he said, "No daughter of mine wastes money on school." He said it so calmly, so matter-of-factly, that for a second I genuinely thought I'd misheard him. I had worked 2 years on that application. I had retaken the SAT 3 times. I had stayed up until 3 in the morning rewriting my personal statement about why I wanted to build bridges, real bridges, the kind that hold up under weight and wind and time, because I'd grown up watching the old railway bridge near our house rust away a little more each year, with nobody ever fixing it, and I wanted to be the person who could. I opened my mouth to say something, anything, but nothing came out. That's the thing nobody warns you about in moments like that. You imagine you'll fight back, that you'll have some speech ready. But instead, your whole body goes still, as if waiting for permission to feel something. That's when my grandmother, my father's own mother, who had been sitting at the end of the table the whole time, quietly eating her pot roast, set down her fork. She didn't slam it. She didn't raise her voice. She simply rested it on the edge of her plate, the way she always did before saying something that mattered. My grandmother, Eleanor, was 74, a widow for the last 12 of those years, and the kind of woman who had survived a war-torn childhood, a husband who drank too heavily in his early years, and raising 4 children nearly alone in a farmhouse that went without heat some winters. She said nothing at first. She only looked at my father the way you'd look at a stranger who'd wandered uninvited into your home. Then she rose from her chair. Slowly, she buttoned the top button of her wool coat, the same navy coat she always kept draped over the back of her seat no matter whose house we ate at, as if she were perpetually ready to leave at a moment's notice. She looked at him and said, "Go pack. She starts in the fall." For a moment, nobody spoke. My father actually laughed, the kind of laugh born from disbelief rather than humor, the kind a man gives when he thinks the joke is on someone else and hasn't yet realized it's on him. "Go pack," he repeated, wiping his eyes as if she'd told the funniest thing he'd heard all year. "Mom, with what money? You get a widow's pension and a garden full of tomatoes. You're going to pay for engineering school with tomatoes?" My grandmother didn't answer him with words. She reached into the inside pocket of that same navy coat, the one she'd just buttoned, and pulled something out. She didn't say a word. She simply reached across the table, past the torn pieces of my acceptance letter, past my father's half-empty plate, and set it down in front of me without a sound. I looked down at it. My father's laughter cut off almost instantly, as if someone had reached over and turned down the volume on him. My mother finally lifted her eyes from her plate. Tobias set his fork down entirely. The whole kitchen fell so silent I could hear the refrigerator humming in the next room. I stared at what lay in front of me, and for the first time all evening, I felt my chest tighten with something other than grief. My father's expression had changed completely, the confidence, the smugness, the certainty that he'd already won this argument the moment he tore that envelope in half. All of it drained out of him in real time, right there at the table, and I watched it happen. I picked it up with shaking hands, and that's when I understood exactly what my grandmother had done, and exactly what it was going to cost my father in ways he never saw coming. It was a bank passbook. Old, worn at the corners, its faded leather cover clearly carried in that coat pocket for far longer than one evening. My grandmother, Eleanor, had never once mentioned it to anyone in the family. Not in birthdays, not in holidays, not even when my father used to make his little comments about her fixed income like it made her less than the rest of us. I opened it with trembling fingers. The numbers on the page didn't make sense to me at first. Line after line of deposits going back almost 15 years. Small amounts at first, $20, $40, then larger ones as the years went on. At the bottom, the totals sat there in black ink. Enough to cover my entire first year of tuition at Cornell with room to spare. My father's face had gone pale. "Where did you get this?" he asked, his voice suddenly missing all the confidence it had carried just moments before. My grandmother looked at him without blinking. "I sold your father's tools after he passed. I sold the old truck. I stopped buying anything I didn't need. Every dollar went into that account for whichever one of my grandchildren needed it most whenever that day came." She paused, glancing at the torn envelope still sitting on the table between us. "That day is tonight." My mother finally spoke, her voice barely above a whisper. "Roland, she's been saving for 15 years. My father sat there, gripping the edge of the table like it might steady him. I could see something shifting behind his eyes. Not quite regret yet, more like the slow realization that the version of the story he'd been telling himself, the one where he was simply being practical, protecting the family from a bad investment, was falling apart in front of everyone he loved. "You don't understand what it's like," he finally said, quieter now, "to watch your kid throw away money on some dream that might not pan out. I grew up with nothing. I don't want that for her." My grandmother sat back down slowly, folding her hands in front of her. "I grew up with nothing, too, Roland. And I watched you get an education because I scraped together every penny I had so you wouldn't have to. Now you sit here and tell your own daughter that her dream is a waste, when the only reason you had the choice to call anything a waste is because someone believed in you first." The silence that followed wasn't angry anymore. It was heavy in a different way, the kind of silence where everyone at the table is quietly rearranging what they thought they knew about each other. My father looked at the torn envelope again, then at me, and for the first time all evening, he didn't have anything clever to say back. I picked up the two halves of my acceptance letter and held them together in my hands, the tear running right through the university's seal. It didn't matter anymore. Cornell would send another copy. What mattered was the woman sitting across from me who had spent 15 years quietly building a future for a granddaughter she believed in without ever asking for credit or attention. "Grandma," I said, my voice cracking, "I don't know what to say." "Say you'll build something that lasts," she said simply. "That bridge you always talk about, the one by the old railway, fix it. Fix 100 more like it. That's payment enough for me." Tobias, who had been silent this whole time, finally spoke up. "Dad, you should probably apologize." My father looked around the table, at my mother's expression, at my grandmother's steady gaze, at me holding the torn envelope like it was something sacred now instead of something broken. He rubbed his face with both hands, and when he looked up again, something in him had softened, just slightly, just enough. "I'm sorry, Grace," he said. "I was wrong. I was scared, and I took it out on you instead of just talking to you like an adult. It wasn't a perfect apology. It wasn't going to erase the sound of that envelope tearing, and I don't think I'll ever fully forget how it felt in that moment when he did it, but it was something." And sitting there at that same table, holding a bank passbook that represented 15 years of quiet sacrifice from a woman nobody thought had anything left to give, I understood something I hadn't before. Sometimes the people who talk the least about their love for you are the ones who have been carrying it the longest, saving it up in silence, waiting for the exact moment you need it most. I start at Cornell this fall. My grandmother is coming to my graduation in 4 years, and I already know exactly what I'm going to hand her when I walk across that stage. If this story moved you even a little, if it reminded you of someone in your own life who gave quietly without ever asking for thanks, do me a favor and hit that subscribe button before you go. There are so many more stories like this one waiting for you, and I'd love for you to be here when the next one drops.